Every so often, the cosmic intelligence communicates messages that trumpet liberation and change. This Aries new moon is one of those moments in time. We will not see these astrological alignments for another 200 years, which means for us, alive today, we share a special connection in the wheel of time. This is a momentous new moon involving a rare grand cross. For those aware, awake, and tuned in, your life is about to take a big leap forward. Hey there, Truth Seeker. Welcome to the Star Kittens community where we discuss 13 sign astrology. Are you in alignment with your divine design? Do you want to master the metaphysical reality? Open the doors of perception. Each planetary body is an archetype, a template, if you will, that helps us interpret human behavior in the world around us. The more awake and aware we are, the more synchronicity will show up in your life. Our focus today is the Aries New Moon. We will spotlight and interpret the exceedingly rare Grand Cross involving assertive Mars conjunct Vulcanus in Cancer, Pluto in Capricorn, and Haumea in Virgo. This combination will not be repeated again in the next 200 years. To help us reach more souls with this important message, please like, share, and subscribe. There's a lot going on, so let's jump in. Kia ora, David.
Kia ora.
A new moon in Aries, for me, that is very much a new beginning. We're back at sign number 1, and what a beautiful configuration we have to talk about today.
Yeah, absolutely. Super excited about this reading today involving the Grand Cross. So very rare, and it's a privilege to be able to bring this podcast and have a conversation about it as well.
Yes. So just to introduce the scene, we have the Sun Moon conjunct in Aries at 8 degrees. So the Sun moved into Aries around the 20th of April. Then opposite this conjunction, we have Haumea on the other side in Virgo. Then the other part of the Grand Cross, we have Vulcanus and Aries, not Aries, but Mars, who is, of course, the guardian of Aries, 5 degrees Cancer, and opposite that is Pluto at 3 degrees Capricorn. So what is the introduction of today?
Aries New Moon signals the beginning of a new solar new year. So happy solar new year to our listeners and watchers. It's a great time to purge karmic debris and trapped emotions. It's also a fantastic time to resolve physical limitations that may be in your body, or transform your surroundings. This is a chance to activate our spatial intelligence, which is crucial for problem solving, creating, and building anything new. The new moon square that you've mentioned, involving Mars and Vulcanus and Cancer, of course, Cancer is a water sign, and Mars and Vulcanus are fire signs. So when you combine water, emotion, and fire cleansing, we have the recipe for pretty turbulent emotions, but these are positive in a sense, and I'll explain what I mean by that. These turbulent emotions will signal urgent changes that is required inside and outside of our reality. Vulcan is the archetype or the story which we've talked about before. We won't go into the mythology today, but suffice to say that Vulcan represents underwater volcanoes. And therefore, we have this combination especially when conjunct Mars as well in Cancer, that there is going to be an eruption within Cancer's domain, which we've talked about at length. But recap is the domain of soul memory, or the repository of soul memories. And Cancer As a sign, Cancer energies also relate to family, lineage, roots, genetics, and DNA. Soul memories, in this context, when we're talking about an eruption of emotions being stirred up by the new moon, the new solar year, plus Mars and Vulcanus in Cancer, we're talking about the stirring of soul memories, of fears, of phobias, of obsessions and addictions, of predilections. These will come to the surface one way or another. But what they signal to us emotionally is a time of change and a time of renewal on the deepest level of our soul, which I find incredibly exciting and liberating. So we're talking here about compulsive behaviors that are in the past or in our parallel realities or past lives that need to now be confronted, that need to be addressed, that need to be resolved. We're talking about soul contracts also coming due. The square to Mars and Vulcanus also forms another square to Haumea, which for those watching will show on the screen, but this forms what we call a grand cross involving also Pluto. So there's an incredible configuration of energies today at this new moon. But the Haumea is the Hawaiian deity of fertility and childbirth, and we spent some time previously talking about her as well. But Haumea represents the birthing of new ideas or projects in this context. Haumea archetype, or the Haumea archetype, requires us to tune into our inner voice, to tap into our wellspring of creativity and our connection to the natural world. The square that is also being formed, both from Haumea to Pluto and Capricorn, but also the new moon itself, brings forward the earth energies. Of course, Capricorn is an earth sign. So what we are talking about with any planet in Capricorn is earth or physical and material world. And the new moon energies of fire, the Aries new moon, brings this idea or concept to mind of scorched earth. But that is, again, in a positive sense, is an opportunity to activate what we call the Plutonic pathway, which we'll touch on shortly. But in short, that means to transmute the negative energies. So as Vulcanus and Mars stir up these soul memories and stir up some of this emotion, deep emotion on a soul level, the Pluto and Capricorn actually gives us a pathway out of that, or a place to focus our energies through the Plutonic pathway, which is to transmute negative energies, to transcend self-limiting beliefs, and therefore to transform these situations, these karmic loops, these obsessions, these addictions, these fears and phobias that will surface at this time.
It is a perfect time then with this new moon energy incorporating these Platonic pathways to really start the new solar year afresh. So that's an exciting time. We have, as you mentioned, spoken about this Vulcan mythology, but I feel that having it conjunct now with Aries ruler, Mars, and then of course having that square with Aries as well, we're having this triple whammy of fire in this water sign. How is this going to go forward?
I think that what comes to mind immediately when you have so much fire and water is, of course, boiling and, reaching a boiling point. So metaphorically, we're talking about emotions and the area of Cancer and the moon, of course, coming to the surface. So those soul memories that will come forward, the emotions, the trapped emotions that will emerge into our awareness, with the fire there, it basically means that we're not going to be able to shy away or avoid these things. But in a sense, an Aries new moon square to Mars and Vulcan in Cancer is actually quite simple to understand because it relates to the beginning and the starting of a process of inner work. The combination of fire, and we look at fire as a primordial energy, is the spark that initiates change. Water, in this case, the emotions, which serve as biofeedback as a mechanism through which we can understand our inner world. Our emotions can talk to us. They say that tears are the language of the soul, for example. But when water is stirred up, or when our emotions and soul memories are stirred up, as they will be at this new moon, the way to understand perhaps where to focus our energies, because sometimes our emotions can be quite surface level, but also there are other emotions and soul memories which can be quite deep. I think that the key to interpret this is to look at where we are most triggered and where we are most defensive, where we are most angry, those energies of the Mars coming through, rather than where we might be annoyed as such. And I differentiate between being triggered, that's something which really gets us going emotionally, which we are incredibly defensive about, or angry or sad. The Vulcanus, of course, if we think of underwater volcanoes, that brings to mind or invokes the image of earthquakes that come and emerge into our awareness as the stirring of these deepest soul memories comes forward. It erupts into our awareness. And we're talking here about memories. We're talking about dreams. We're talking even about nightmares, fears, existential threats. Karmic loops are important to consider here as well. Soul contracts, bindings, ties, curses, and encumbrances that we have taken with us and carried with us through lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, which exist in parallel realities and in past and present realities as well, when you think about this from a quantum perspective. So all of that baggage, if you like, those karmic loops, that trauma on a soul and emotional level. The emotions, of course, relate only to this lifetime, but we also have these soul memories which we can bring with us from other lifetimes. That's all coming together, and that's all being stirred up. So just to be clear, when I talk about these parallel and past and other dimensions, what I'm doing is it's juxtaposing or merging the soul memories that come from the moon with the emotional memories of this lifetime that come from Cancer, that also come through our bloodlines, that also come through our genetics. And we've talked about that before. The Mars energy, you asked about that, and the fire energy, the triple fire, of course, means that if we take the approach of a head in sand, we're going to get overwhelmed. So it is, in fact, a time to tap into the more adventurous, more courageous side of Aries and fire. It's time to rise up, just like an underwater volcano does, which, if we were to be aware of it, if we were living somewhere where there were underwater volcanoes, of course, we can't stop that power. That power is destructive, it's irrepressible. But if we are aware of it, then we can certainly manage our response to that. So something energetic is emerging personally. This is a very personal new moon as opposed to a collective that cannot be avoided. This is a time to tap into our inner warrior, the Mars energy, our inner strength and resolve and courage and determination, and to focus on liberation, to focus on release, to focus on freedom, to finally be rid of emotional and spiritual limitations that have maybe dogged us for just a long, long time. And as I say, these could be lifetime after lifetime. It could be coming through our genetics, where we have the opportunity to break some of this with consciousness. This primordial spark of Mars enters the womb of creation, which is a dark place, of course. But what that spark does is bring awareness to us, and therefore brings life to us.
As you were talking about being able to finally let go of these baggages, I just want to give our audience some different pathways of doing that. There is emotional freedom technique. There's bodies of work that is like emotion code, which I do myself. But there's also sound healing or breath work, or even really being guided in some beautiful asanas to really help you release things. So there is all sorts, of course, journaling, sun staring, anything that you can get your hands on over this next few days to really let go of things that are no longer serving you and start afresh with this new moon. You mentioned the square, of course, from both sides of Haumea to Pluto and this new moon to Pluto, but we have this square between Pluto and Mars and Vulcanus in Cancer. So how are these tension energies going?
Yeah, before I touch on that too, what I'd add is one of the things that I do especially at solar New Year's, if I'm wanting to shed myself of something, I have little rituals that I do. Obviously, quantum commands are very strong, but to do those effectively, you really have to have a full awareness of where some of these, and this is why I talk about triggering. Where we are triggered, and that triggering is again, just to reiterate, is where we're going to get the biggest bang for our buck at this new moon in terms of this cleansing and liberation and renewal, is to look at our lives and where we are the most resistant to change, or we really aggressively defend a position and we sometimes don't even know why, or we just viscerally react to something. And that could be music or the way someone speaks or even a racial group. There are all sorts of triggers that will emerge, and all of them, where there's strong emotions tied to it, that, as I said, is the biofeedback mechanism that helps to guide us into those modalities that you're talking about. One of the things I also do is little rituals occasionally, and I'll write some things down. Write a positive intention or an intention to let something go, and I will combine all the elements. So I'll write it on paper, and that requires a physical and emotional exertion. But then I'll take that piece of paper and burn it. I'll get a tin, a vegetable tin or something that's finished with, and I'll put that piece of paper in there and burn it. So I get the mixture of the tin and the fire and the paper as well, and then the smoke, and then I'll pour water into that tin. This is a ritual cleansing. And then I'll tip the ashes all over the ground and make some affirmation, some positive affirmation as a sign and a signal to use the elements together in an alchemical process as a ritual to say to the universe, hey, this is what I'm intending to do going forward. So that's just something that I do that, there might be some ideas there for you to think about as well. But this Mars and Vulcanus opposite Pluto, with all the emotional angst and turbulence that's likely to surface, there's spiritual awareness that's being triggered by Mars, the primordial spark entering the darkness of basically ignorance. That creates awareness for us. That's on the Mars, Vulcanus, Cancer side. But on the other side of this Grand Cross, we've got, of course, Pluto and Capricorn. And that gives a slightly different emphasis for us to think about. Of course, Capricorn, as I mentioned in the beginning, is an earth sign. And it's also the opposite of Cancer. But the manifestation of Cancer energies, the trauma through Capricorn, comes in our body, so our physical reality, but also in our surroundings. And the way that we can isolate where we are not dealing with some of those traumas, those soul memories, those trapped emotions, for example, in the physical world, so therefore Pluto and Capricorn, the way we can identify that is to look at where we may be physically addicted to something, where we have these deep attachments to the material world. Again, sometimes this is appropriate, but this is where we've gone too far, is what we're getting at here. Where we have fears and worries relating to the material world of Pluto and Capricorn, where we have deep concerns about our stability or grounding or sense of accomplishment and meaning that we derive in our lives from physical exertion, where we place unbalanced value on material possessions and resources, where we accumulate and hoard, and we were talking about that the other day. But the great news about this, again, this is so positive. The great news about the Pluto effect here is what we call the Plutonic pathway. And this is what gives us this laser-like focus. So when these turbulent emotions and these energies are coming forward and we're becoming aware of them and we're focusing on them through mindfulness and meditation, through practice and through those healing modalities that you were talking about, we can also mentally engage with this process through this Plutonic pathway, which has these three parts. We've talked about this before, but we'll repeat them here today. The first part of liberation and release, when we mentally and emotionally engage with the process, is that we look to transmute negative energies, and we do that by cultivating awareness. Once we've cultivated awareness of where there are negative energies in our life manifesting, we can then look to transcend the beliefs that we've attached to that and what we call self-limiting beliefs. So we transmute negative energies by cultivating awareness, and then we transcend self-limiting beliefs by reframing. And this is the game of mental gymnastics, of telling another story, of looking at it another way, of playing with that situation and saying, is that really what it meant? Perhaps I've misinterpreted it. Perhaps I could see it another way. That's how we transcend those self-limiting beliefs. And finally, we look to transform situations and scenarios through action, which of course is Mars. And there's another key piece to this. This is going a little deeper in that transcendence aspect of the Plutonic pathway. We activate our spatial intelligence. Now, what is spatial intelligence? This is so critical here when we're talking about Pluto and Capricorn opposite Vulcanus and Mars in Cancer, which is square to a new moon in Aries. Visual spatial intelligence is the ability to perceive, to manipulate, and understand the visual world. So that's the physical world, right? Including shapes, lines, colors, and the relationships between the components of what we see in the physical world. This involves visualizing objects in different positions, mentally rotating them, and understanding how our life fits together. This skill of spatial intelligence, which is part of transcending self-limiting beliefs, is crucial for navigating this new moon and these energies, which could be quite overwhelming, for invoking problem solving as a positive response, and also invoking and activating the creativity that's within us that will help us to design and build our lives, our career, our purpose, and our life work. Spatial intelligence enables us as individuals to accurately perceive and interpret visual information, including all the relationships of the things, the objects that we have in our life. We mentally rotate them, we mentally transform them in time and space. And we understand the cause and effect, that the things that we have in our life physically through Capricorn are a reflection of our inner energies. You see, we like something, so we go and buy it. We like something, so we go and do it. We don't like something, so we don't do it. We don't buy. We don't organize our lives physically. So there's a deep relationship between our emotions and the physical world, and therefore spatial intelligence. Pluto talks about how we express this Pluto and Capricorn, how we express our emotions and our soul mirrors in physical form. What we eat, how we dress, the house we live in, the car we drive, the career or job we choose or find ourselves in, the furniture and the chattels that we select, how we nest, how we create our creature comforts. All of these are objects in a sense, and therefore a part of spatial intelligence. But they contain a part of us. We invest emotionally in our physical surroundings. And this is the key of the Pluto pathway here. The spatial intelligence, think of it as feng shui for your life, feng shui for the mind, the ancient Chinese practice that focuses on harmonizing us with our environment by strategically arranging our spaces. So this is mental and emotional spaces we're talking about, which then manifests in our physical spaces as well. We're looking to create a balanced energy flow inwardly so that we can express that outwardly. The Plutonic pathway, therefore, is to activate our spatial intelligence and our inner feng shui mastery so that we can arrange or rearrange our surroundings in a way that positively affirms our well-being and our mindset. Of course, it's easier to do that outwardly than it is inwardly. But if we shift stuff around outwardly, see it also as a metaphor for what we could do to shift stuff inwardly. Feng Shui incorporates the concepts of like yin, dark and yang, or darkness and light, fire and ice, these sorts of things, which are complementary energies, opposite energies. But it involves the 5 elements of wood, fire, earth, metal, and water. And I talked about that in that ritual, that I combine all of those energies in order to affirm a way forward by making a statement to the world, which is Aries. So there's an importance here of understanding that spatial arrangement and orientation of the objects in our life, which are an external expression of our emotional state. We direct our emotions externally into different form, and this is what I mean by activating your inner feng shui as a way forward at this new moon.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and see if something is actually bringing you joy or not. Like, are you watching the 6 o'clock news every day because it brings you joy, or because it is something that is just routine? You just do it over and over, and we can talk about that with certain foods you eat or certain beverages. Is it a habit, or is it something else? And if it's a habit, then you can look at, okay, is this actually fulfilling me? Is this making me a better person? Or is there something I can change in that way, changing my surroundings, which then help the inner surroundings? That's how I interpret it anyway. Thank you for that, bringing in feng shui, because we don't necessarily take the time to appreciate that part of life. We're so on the go, and we so need to get up early and have the food and the job and the everything, that we tend to forget how things really make us feel. Thank you. So we haven't spoken a lot, as in a lot of podcasts, we haven't mentioned Haumea, but we have talked about her before. So I'm very excited that she's made a return. And of course, being part of this Grand Cross, where Haumea is sitting across from the new moon and forming this beautiful square on both sides with Pluto and Mars and Vulcanus. What is her role at this new moon?
It's really cool, isn't it, that we've got Haumea here? I know that you pointed that out. I'd missed it when I was looking at the chart, so thank you for that. But of course, briefly, Haumea in astrology is a dwarf planet. It's a funny term, right? Dwarf planet. To me, they're all just planetary bodies, their energies. It doesn't matter. So Haumea is the archetypal related to the mythology of the Hawaiian goddess of fertility and childbirth, which is very appropriate here at this new moon as we go through these transformative processes of Pluto. Of course, Haumea represents the creative power of the natural world and our connection to it. That's so important. So that's also reaffirmed or confirmed, if you like, by that Pluto-Capricorn relationship. That is absolutely about connection to the material world. It's associated with, Haumea is associated with motherhood, fertility, instinct, and the birthing of new ideas or projects that are, in this context, inspired by Mars and concretized or brought into form by Pluto and Capricorn. Haumea here speaks to how much we listen or are prepared to listen to our inner voice, our heart, and our intuition as the drivers and the basis for creativity, for creating something new, for creating something different. Haumea is linked to the birthing process, as I mentioned, both literally and metaphorically. So this is a energy that applies to males as well as females. It's not based on your sex, it is based on metaphor. And therefore, at this new moon, it represents the creation of new ideas, projects, or even life itself. Imagine there will be souls actually, and this is an interesting one when we think about the concept of if we choose to come in at a particular time and particular moment. There are souls right now that will wait to come down the birthing canal on the exact moment of this new moon. How amazing is that? And as we mentioned in the beginning, or you mentioned, because it's involving Pluto, and Pluto's cycle is 200 plus years, 250 odd years. This won't happen again in our lifetimes, at least, unless there's some amazing biological breakthroughs and we end up living to 300. But basically, this is so rare, and that there will be souls who are choosing to come in. That's very much this Haumea, and they will come in with the blessing of this incredible deity. And goodness knows what those souls, we won't know where they are on the earth unless we stumble across them. But I reckon that there's probably some very, very high frequency souls and energies are going to come onto the planet at this new moon because of Haumea. But as an archetype, Haumea emphasizes the importance, as I said, of listening to our heart, but also acting on our inner wisdom, which we say is coming from the third eye. So this is the intuition. And that comes from and is heightened by alignment with our divine design and being in alignment also with the true cosmic cycles. I know we bang on about this, but this is so important. The true cosmic cycles, as opposed to the false 12 sign overlay, which is now sending people off in the wrong direction. I don't know. I haven't even looked. But this new moon won't be, I don't think it'll be in Aries. Do you know where it
No.
is in the 12 sign?
They say it is in Taurus, and of course they
Taurus.
say that Pluto is in Aquarius.
Yeah. So barking up the wrong tree, right? So Haumea is talking about we have to be, if we're going to listen to our inner wisdom, if we are going to act on our heart, what is required is that we are in alignment with our divine design, but also with the true cosmic cycles. And how can you be aligned with the true cosmic cycles if you think that and you're believing that this new moon is in Taurus, which means you're missing this new solar cycle and everything else that's going on. That to me is part of the deception of the 12 sign system. And that to me is part of the tragedy. And it illustrates perfectly what we're talking about by the stirring of these deep soul memories. You see, you've shared, and you might want to touch on this in a moment, but you've shared your own astrological journey of how that was passed through your family. And it wasn't until that's cancer, right? That's lineage and roots, and that's a belief system. And that belief system is what we're talking about with this platonic pathway. You have a self-limiting belief, but you're not aware of it until someone points it out. And you can't transcend that self-limiting belief. In this case, years or generations of astrological teaching, you can't transcend that until you become firstly aware of it. And it wasn't until I spoke to you about 13 sign astrology that you started to make the shift. So that there, right there, that little story illustrates exactly what we're talking about here. Now, at this Mars new moon and solar new year, it is a time of rebirthing and emergence and renewal as an individual. It is time to muster the strength, the inner resolve, the courage, the determination, and the willfulness of the ram, the Aries spirit animal, and Mars, the warrior planet, to fight for your autonomy, to assert your sovereignty, and to stand your ground. Confront your inner demons and confront your fears, your trapped emotions, your physical limitations. And by that I mean, are you overweight? Are you exercising regularly? Are you in touch with the earth? Are you eating right? all of those things come up. They may be challenging and confronting, but I say it deliberately because we need to be triggered. But also, there are going to be soul contracts and spiritual baggage where we can finally be rid of them. We can say, that's it. It's over. It's gone. That's it. I've broken that. And you and I have talked about this again in the family, that sometimes we come in the lineage, Cancer, and the soul memories, and it is up to us to break the lineage of bindings and carnage that is emotionally coming through and spiritually and genetically coming through the bloodline, the lineage and roots of Cancer. It is sometimes up to just one individual to break all of that. And that's what this is also about. So that sign of Cancer relating to lineage and roots, effectively our genetics, our bloodlines, our soul memories. Some of you out there listening to this, wow. The fact that that just happened, that's incredible. Some of you listening to this, there is a call going out to you that it is your time to break some curses and some bindings and to free up not just yourself, but those who have been and those who are to come in your bloodline. Pluto is about transmuting negative energies, transcending self-limiting beliefs, our mindset, and transforming whatever situation or scenario you are in right now.
I love it when you get passionate about the overlay of the 12 sign system. So if you would like to know more, you listener, and would like us to do just a short video of what are the differences between the 12 and 13 and how did we find out about the 13 sign, please drop it in the comments, send us a message, an email. We would love to get some encouragement about that. But I'm going to put on the screen now. So I'm going to take this this photo, the screenshot just after this video. And we are recording this video a few days before the new moon, which happens in New Zealand on the 8th, 8 degrees on the 28th of April. So I'm going to use my nighttime app. It's called, the one I have is called Night Sky. So you can get it for both Android and iPhones. And I'm going to show you on the screen now that you can clearly see that the sun is in Aries. The moon is not near because the moon will only be on top of the sun when it is the new moon. But you can check yourself, use an app and type in, see where Pluto is now. Is Pluto in Aquarius? Or is Pluto truly in Capricorn as it is in the night sky? So do an experiment and just see for yourself. If you are interested to find out what your divine design is for this lifetime, you can get a chat with us. We put time and effort into explaining, short explanation on your sun, moon, and rising sign, but we also do natal readings, which you can book using the links in the description. Have you got anything else you would like to share, David?
I haven't got anything else specifically other than I just encourage, as I said, it came to me just while we were doing this, and it came to me live and spontaneously, and that to me is my intuition. I trust it. You know, at 57, I trust my intuition, absolutely trust it. And there is this video, this podcast is a call out to some folks out there that you are sitting in a bloodline. You might be like yourself, Sana. You might have your mum still alive and your daughter, but there is a call out to some of you because of this Cancer lineage and roots to break something that has been holding you back. And that is going to require courage. But the great news is that the tailwinds are there, that often there's a small window of opportunity, and then it opens and then it closes. This opportunity of this Grand Cross will not, it's open right now, but it will sort of 3 days, 2 or 3 days before, as the moon comes close to that new moon position. This isn't going to happen again. For 250 odd years. That's where I want to leave this podcast.
Thank you. For those watching us on YouTube, you can find us on Spotify and Apple Podcast. Leave us a takeaway message in the comments, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Ngā mihi.
Namaste.
Until then.